Commander Hyun checked his uniform one last time before stepping into the briefing room. 3 years of preparation had led to this moment. Earth's first official contact with an alien civilization was about to begin, and he was chosen to lead. "Listen up, everyone," Hyun said to his team of 12 specialists. The room fell quiet as maps of the Valian star system appeared on the screen. "We're not just representing ourselves today, we're representing all of humanity." His second-in-command, Tae, pulled up the cultural files they'd studied for months. The Valians were described as tall, elegant beings who valued order above everything else. Their society had strict rules for every interaction, from how you entered a room to how you spoke to different social ranks. "Remember the greeting protocol," Tae reminded everyone. "Bow exactly 15 degrees. Wait for them to speak first. Never make direct eye contact with anyone of higher rank until they give permission." Hyun nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Earth's governments had spent billions on this mission. Humanity needed allies in the galaxy, especially after discovering they weren't alone. The Valians controlled dozens of star systems and had technology that could advance human civilization by centuries. The transport ship New Seoul had been humanity's proudest achievement until now. It took them 6 months to reach Valian space, crossing distances that would have been impossible just decades ago. But compared to Valian ships they'd seen, it looked like a child's toy. "Sir, we're getting their response," Communications Officer Minji announced. "They're granting permission to dock at their capital station." Through the viewing port, Hyun watched as the Valian station came into view. It was massive, easily 10 times larger than anything humans had built. Crystal-like structures spiraled around a central core that pulsed with soft blue light. Ships moved in perfect formation around it, following invisible traffic patterns that looked like a carefully choreographed dance. "Beautiful," whispered Dr. Jiwon, their xenobiologist. "Their architecture is like nothing we've ever seen." As they docked, Hyun felt his heart rate increase. Everything they'd trained for was about to be tested. The airlock cycled, and they got their first smell of alien air. It was clean, almost sterile, with a faint metallic taste. Their Valian escort appeared, tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to shimmer like polished stone. "Welcome, humans of Earth," the alien said in perfect English. "I am Guide Keleth. Queen Nera awaits your presence in the formal chamber." The walk through the station amazed them all. Valians moved with purpose, never rushing, but never wasting motion. Their clothes were simple but elegant, and every surface gleamed as if it had just been polished. Children watched the humans with curious eyes, but stayed respectfully quiet. "The Queen has taken personal interest in your species," Keleth explained as they walked. "This is highly unusual. Normally, first contact would be handled by lower officials." Hyun exchanged glances with Tae. This wasn't in their briefing materials. Why would their queen personally meet with representatives from what they probably considered a primitive species? The formal chamber doors were 30 feet tall and covered in intricate patterns that seemed to move when you weren't looking directly at them. As they opened, Hyun took a deep breath. Whatever happened next would change the course of human history. "Ready?" he asked his team quietly. They nodded, straightening their uniforms and checking their translation devices one final time. The future of humanity was about to begin. The formal chamber was breathtaking. Hundreds of Valians stood in perfect rows, their shimmering robes creating a sea of colors that shifted like oil on water. At the far end, on a throne that seemed carved from a single massive crystal, sat Queen Nera. Hyun had seen pictures, but nothing prepared him for meeting her in person. She was nearly 9 feet tall, with features that looked both delicate and powerful. Her skin had the same shimmer as the others, but hers seemed to glow from within. Most striking were her eyes. They were deep purple and seemed to look right. "Through him. Follow the protocol exactly," Tae whispered behind him as they walked down the long aisle. Every step echoed in the silent chamber. Hundreds of alien eyes watched their every move. Hyun's heart pounded as they approached the throne. 15 degrees bow, wait for permission to speak, no direct eye contact. He'd practiced this 1,000 times. This moment would determine whether humanity gained a powerful ally or made a dangerous enemy. They stopped at the designated distance. Hyun bowed precisely 15 degrees, his team following his lead. The silence stretched on. He could hear his own breathing and the faint hum of alien technology around them. "Your Majesty," Guide Kelleth announced formally, "I present Commander Hyun and the diplomatic delegation from the planet Earth." Queen Nera leaned forward on her throne, studying them intently. Her purple eyes seemed to scan each human, but they kept returning to Hyun. The silence continued for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Then she did something that shattered every rule in the Valian cultural handbook. She stood up abruptly, stepped down from her throne, and walked directly toward Hyun. The entire court gasped. Several nobles made shocked sounds that their translation devices couldn't interpret. "You," she said, pointing directly at Hyun, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. "Human commander." Hyun felt his mouth go dry. This wasn't in any of their preparation scenarios. Was she angry? Had they somehow offended her already? Queen Nera stopped just a few feet away from him, close enough that he could see the intricate patterns in her skin that seemed to pulse with her heartbeat. Her eyes locked onto his, and he felt like she was looking into his soul. The entire chamber held its breath. Even the guards looked confused and worried. Then Queen Nera asked the question that would change everything. "Are you single, human?" The words hit the chamber like a physical force. Several nobles actually stumbled backward. Others made choking sounds. Guide Kelleth's face went through 3 different shades of color before settling on what looked like panic. Hyun stood frozen, his mind completely blank. Of all the possible scenarios they'd prepared for, hostile reception, cultural misunderstandings, translation errors, even potential arrest, nobody had prepared him for this. Behind him, he heard Tae make a sound like he was choking on air. Dr. Jiwon whispered something that sounded like, "What just happened?" Their communication specialist Minji was frantically checking her translation device, probably hoping it had made an error. Queen Nera waited for his answer, her purple eyes never leaving his face. The silence in the chamber was so complete that Hyun swore he could hear his own heartbeat echoing off the crystal walls. The most powerful alien ruler in known space had just asked him about his dating life, and everyone was waiting for his response. The moment stretched on like an eternity. Hyun's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Around the chamber, Vaelian nobles whispered urgently to each other in their musical language. Some looked scandalized, others seemed curious, and a few appeared genuinely frightened. Hyun finally managed to croak out, his voice barely audible in the vast chamber. Queen Nera tilted her head, waiting patiently for his answer. Her expression was calm, almost serene, as if she'd just asked about the weather instead of dropping the most unexpected question in diplomatic history. Tae stepped forward slightly, his training kicking in despite the bizarre situation. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "perhaps there's been a translation error. Our devices might have misinterpreted your words." The Queen's purple eyes shifted to Tae for a moment, then back to Hyun. "There is no error," she said clearly. "I asked if Commander Hyun is romantically unattached, available, without a mate." Dr. Jiwon made a small squeaking sound behind them. Communications Officer Minji was frantically tapping her tablet, probably trying to find some cultural reference. That would explain what was happening. Guide Kelleth looked like he might faint. His skin had turned a pale shade of green, and he kept glancing between the Queen and the human delegation, as if watching a disaster unfold in slow motion. "Your Majesty," Kelleth said in a shaky voice, "perhaps we should return to the formal protocols. The humans have come to discuss trade agreements and cultural exchange." Queen Nera waved a dismissive hand without taking her eyes off Hyun. "The protocols can wait. This is far more important." She began walking in a slow circle around the stunned human commander, studying him like a scientist examining a fascinating new specimen. "In all my years, across all the species we've encountered, I have never felt anything like this." "Felt what exactly?" Hyun asked, finally finding his voice. His diplomatic training was screaming at him to be respectful, but his curiosity was stronger than his fear. "Energy," the Queen said simply. "Life force, what you humans might call presence." She stopped directly in front of him again. Every living being emits a unique signature. Most are weak, barely detectable. Others are strong but harsh, like a bright light that hurts to look at. The chamber had gone completely silent. Even the guards had stopped moving, transfixed by their queen's words. "But you," she continued, her voice dropping to almost a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the room, "you emit something I've never encountered. It's warm, complex, chaotic, yet harmonious. It draws me in like nothing ever has." Tay stepped closer to Hyun, his protective instincts kicking in. "Your Majesty, Commander Hyun is here on a diplomatic mission. We're not entirely sure what you're describing." Queen Nera smiled for the first time since they'd entered the chamber. It transformed her entire face, making her seem less like an intimidating ruler and more like, well, like a woman who was genuinely interested in someone. "Of course you don't understand," she said. "Your species is young. You haven't developed the ability to sense life energy the way we have, but I can feel it radiating from all of you, especially him." She gestured to Hyun, who was still trying to process what was happening. "Your emotional complexity, your unpredictability, your capacity for growth and change, it creates a signature unlike anything in our galaxy." "So when you asked if I was single," Hyun began slowly. "I was asking," the Queen said with another smile, "if you were available to explore this connection further." The implications hit the entire human delegation at once, and suddenly everyone was talking at the same time. The human team huddled together in urgent whispers, while Queen Nera watched with obvious amusement. Around the chamber, Valian nobles were having their own heated discussions, their musical voices rising and falling like worried songs. "This is insane," Tay muttered under his breath. "We came here to negotiate trade deals, not whatever this is." Dr. Jiwon was frantically scrolling through her cultural notes. "There's nothing in our research about emotional compatibility sensing, nothing about cross-species attraction. We're completely unprepared for this." Hyun tried to focus on his team's concerns, but he couldn't shake the feeling that Queen Nera was still studying him. Every time he glanced her way, those purple eyes were fixed on him with an intensity that made his skin tingle. "Your Majesty," Guide Keleth said nervously, approaching the throne area where the Queen had returned. "Perhaps we should discuss this matter privately. The court isn't concerned." Queen Nera's expression hardened slightly. "The court has no say in matters of compatibility. This is beyond politics." A tall Valian noble with elaborate silver markings on his robe stepped forward. His movements were stiff, with barely controlled anger. "Your Majesty, with respect, this human cannot possibly understand the significance of what you're suggesting." "And what am I suggesting, Prince Jorik?" the Queen asked, her voice carrying a dangerous edge. Prince Jorik's skin darkened to a deep bronze color, apparently a sign of strong emotion among Valians. "You're speaking of bond sensing across species. Barriers. Our scientists have studied this for centuries. It's impossible. Yet here we are," Queen Nera replied calmly. Hyun felt like he was watching a tennis match, his head turning back and forth between the Queen and the Prince. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. "What exactly is bond sensing?" he asked, surprising himself by speaking up. The Queen's expression softened when she looked at him. "It's the ability to recognize perfect emotional and spiritual compatibility with another being. When two souls resonate at the same frequency, they can sense each other across vast distances. It's the foundation of our strongest partnerships." "And you're saying you can sense this with me?" Hyun asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not just sense it," she replied. "I can feel it like a warm current running through my entire being. It's as if part of my soul has been waiting for you, without knowing it." The romantic implications hit Hyun like a physical blow. Behind him, he heard Minji make a strangled sound. This wasn't just about diplomatic relations anymore. This was personal. Prince Jorik's bronze skin darkened further. "Your Majesty, you are promised to me. Our bonding ceremony is planned for next lunar cycle. This human cannot interfere with arrangements that have been in place for years." The word human came out like an insult, and Hyun felt his own temper start to rise. But before he could respond, Queen Nera stood up from her throne, her full height making her tower over everyone in the chamber. "Prince Jorik," she said, her voice carrying absolute authority, "our arrangement was political convenience. This is something far more powerful. You would risk war between our houses for a primitive alien?" Prince Jorik demanded. "I would risk anything," the Queen replied without hesitation, "for the chance to explore a connection that our best scientists claimed was impossible." The chamber erupted into chaos. Nobles were shouting, guards were shifting nervously, and somewhere in the confusion, Hyun realized that his simple diplomatic mission had just turned into the center of an alien political crisis, and somehow he was the cause of it all. The chaos in the chamber reached a breaking point when Prince Jorik slammed his ceremonial staff against the crystal floor. The sharp sound echoed like a gunshot, instantly silencing everyone. "Enough!" he roared, his bronze skin now almost black with rage. "If Her Majesty believes this human possesses some special quality, then let him prove it according to our laws." Queen Nera's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Jorik, you forget yourself." "I forget nothing," the prince shot back. "By ancient tradition, any who would challenge an existing bond promise must face the trials of worth. Even you, my queen, cannot ignore laws that have stood for 1,000 years." Hyun felt his stomach drop. He didn't need a translation to know that trials of worth probably didn't involve sitting at a desk, taking a written exam. Tae stepped protectively closer to his commander. "What exactly are these trials?" he asked, his voice tense. Guide Kelleth looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "The trials of worth are challenging," he said carefully. "They test strength, intelligence, courage, and spiritual fortitude. Many who attempt them do not survive." "Do not survive?" Dr. Jiwon squeaked from behind them. Prince Jorik smiled coldly. "The trials separate the worthy from the pretenders. If this human truly deserves Her Majesty's attention, he will prove it. If not—" He shrugged, the gesture somehow managing to be both elegant and threatening. Queen Nera stood up abruptly. "The trials are barbaric and outdated. I will not risk the—" "Law is the law," Prince Jorik interrupted. "Unless you wish to declare yourself above our most sacred traditions." The challenge hung in the air like a sword. Hyun could see the trap clearly. If the Queen refused to follow their laws, she'd lose credibility with her own people. If she agreed, he might die in whatever these trials involved. "I'll do it," Hyun said quietly. Every head in the chamber turned toward him. Queen Nera looked shocked. Tae looked horrified, and Prince Jorik looked pleased in a predatory way. "Commander, no," Tae said urgently. "We don't even know what these trials involve. This could be suicide." Hyun looked around the chamber at the hundreds of watching faces. Some showed curiosity, others contempt, and a few seemed genuinely concerned. But all of them were waiting to see what the human would do. "What exactly would I have to face?" he asked Prince Jorik directly. The prince's smile widened. 3 trials spread over 3 days. The trial of body to test your physical capabilities, the trial of mind to test your intelligence and wisdom, and the trial of spirit to test your inner strength and worthiness. "And if I refuse?" "Then you admit humans are inferior and unworthy of royal attention. Your diplomatic mission ends in failure, and your species remains unrecognized." The threat was clear. This wasn't just about Queen Nera anymore. This was about Earth's entire future relationship with the Valian Empire. "Commander," Minji whispered urgently, "we should contact Earth Command, get instructions." "There's no time," Hyun replied, watching Prince Jorik's triumphant expression. "If I back down now, we'll lose any respect we might have earned." Queen Nera stepped down from her throne again, moving closer to him. "You don't understand what you're agreeing to. The trials have killed warriors who trained their entire lives for them." Hyun met her purple eyes steadily. "Then I guess I'll have to be smarter than a warrior." Prince Jorik laughed, the sound harsh and mocking. "Confidence from a primitive species, how entertaining. Very well, human. The trials begin at dawn tomorrow. I hope you've made peace with whatever gods your people worship." "Actually," Hyun said, surprising everyone, including himself, "I have one condition." The chamber fell silent again. When I succeed, he continued, his voice carrying more confidence than he felt, Earth and the Valian Empire establish full diplomatic relations, trade agreements, technology exchange, the works. Prince Jorik's smile faltered slightly. When you succeed. When? Hyun repeated firmly. Dawn came too quickly. Hyun had spent the night in the guest quarters, unable to sleep, while his team frantically researched everything they could find about Valian trials. What they discovered wasn't encouraging. The last recorded trial of Worth was 50 years ago, Dr. Jiwon reported grimly. The challenger died in the first test, something called the Arena of Blades. Tae paced the small room like a caged animal. We should have contacted Earth Command. They could have ordered you to withdraw and lose our only chance at an alliance. Hyun shook his head. No, we're here now. We deal with it. When the guards came to escort him to the trial grounds, Hyun was surprised by what he found. Instead of a gladiatorial arena, he was led to a vast chamber filled with what looked like puzzle boxes, crystal formations, and strange mechanical devices. Queen Nera was already there, looking worried. Prince Jorik stood nearby with several other nobles, all wearing expressions of anticipation. A crowd of Valians filled viewing galleries above. I expected combat, Hyun said to Prince Jorik. The prince's smile was cold. These trials are far more challenging than simple combat. They test the totality of your being. Many warriors can swing a sword. Few can master the complexities you're about to face. Guide Keleth approached with what looked like a ceremonial robe. Commander, you must wear this during the trials. It will monitor your vital signs and other things. As Hyun put on the strange garment, he felt a tingling sensation. The fabric seemed to respond to his thoughts and emotions, changing color slightly with his mood. The first trial begins now, Prince Jorik announced. Before you are 5 ancient puzzles. Each has stumped our greatest minds for generations. You have 1 hour to solve at least 3. Hyun approached the first puzzle, a complex arrangement of floating crystals that seemed to shift and move when he wasn't looking directly at them. Traditional Valian approaches had probably involved careful analysis and systematic testing. Instead, Hyun did something unexpected. He closed his eyes and simply listened. The crystals made tiny humming sounds as they moved. Each had a different pitch. After a few minutes, he realized they were trying to form a harmony, but something was blocking them. You're trying to make music, he said aloud, earning confused looks from the watchers. He began moving the crystals not based on their visual patterns, but based on how they sounded together. Within 10 minutes, the puzzle sang out a perfect chord and dissolved into sparkling light. The crowd murmured in surprise. Prince Jorik's confident expression wavered slightly. The second puzzle was a mechanical device with hundreds of moving parts. Valians had probably tried to understand each component individually. Hyun stepped back and watched the whole thing, in motion, looking for the rhythm and flow rather than the individual pieces. It's not a machine, he realized. It's a dance. He began moving the parts not to achieve a specific configuration, but to create a beautiful pattern of motion. The device responded by transforming into an elegant sculpture that glowed with inner light. By the time he reached the third puzzle, a mathematical equation written in symbols that seemed to change meaning when you looked at them, the entire chamber was silent with fascination. The symbols aren't changing, Hyun announced. We're changing. Our perspective shifts as we try to understand them. Instead of fighting the shifting meanings, he embraced them. He wrote multiple solutions simultaneously, each valid from different viewpoints. The equation accepted all of them and projected a stunning holographic display. Queen Nera was smiling now, her eyes bright with something that looked like pride. Prince Jorik, on the other hand, looked increasingly uncomfortable. Impossible, one of the noble observers whispered in their musical language. Not impossible, Hyun said, understanding more than he should have. Just human. The success of Hyun's first trial spread through the Valian station faster than wildfire. Within hours, news feeds across multiple star systems were buzzing with reports of a human who had solved ancient puzzles in ways no one had ever imagined. "Commander, you need to see this," Minji said urgently, bursting into their guest quarters with her communication device. "We're getting intercepted transmissions from at least 6 different alien civilizations. They're all talking about you." Hyun looked up from studying materials for the next trial. "What kind of talk?" "The worried kind," Tai answered grimly, reading over Minji's shoulder. "The Zephyrian Trade Consortium is calling an emergency session. The hegemony of Krix is mobilizing their diplomatic fleet. And something called the Shadow Collective just put out what looks like a bounty notice." Dr. Jiwon went pale. "A bounty? On Commander Hyun?" "On both of us, apparently," came Queen Nira's voice from the doorway. She entered without ceremony, her usual guards conspicuously absent. "The galaxy is very nervous about a potential human-Valian alliance." "Why?" Hyun asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "Because together we would control the most advanced technology and the most unpredictable problem-solving abilities in known space," the Queen replied. "Other powers have spent centuries maintaining a careful balance. We threaten to upset everything." As if to prove her point, the station's alarm system suddenly began wailing. Red lights flashed, and automated voices announced something in rapid Faelian that the translation devices couldn't keep up with. "Security breach," Queen Nira translated, her expression turning deadly serious. "Multiple unauthorized ships approaching the station." Through the viewing port, Hyun could see sleek, dark vessels that didn't match any design in their cultural briefings. They moved with predatory grace, clearly built for stealth and speed rather than diplomacy. "Shadow Collective," Guide Kelleth announced breathlessly as he ran into the room. "They've somehow bypassed our outer defenses. Your Majesty, we need to get you to the secure levels immediately." "What about my team?" Hyun demanded. "The humans are their primary target," Queen Nira said. "If they eliminate you, the Alliance dies before it can begin." Explosions echoed through the station as the attacking ships opened fire. The lights flickered, and Hyun felt the artificial gravity waver for a moment. "There's something else," Minji said, still monitoring communications. "The attacks aren't just here. Reports are coming in of strikes against Earth's outer colonies. 3 different alien factions launched coordinated attacks." Hyun's blood ran cold. "They're trying to cripple humanity's space presence while taking me out here." "Exactly," Queen Nira confirmed. "They want to ensure that even if we survive, Earth won't be strong enough to matter." Another explosion, closer this time. The station shuddered, and several decorative crystals fell from their mountings. "The trial arena has been compromised," Prince Jorik announced as he appeared in the doorway, his earlier hostility replaced by grim determination. "Whatever our personal differences, I won't allow assassins to determine Valian affairs." "Can we fight them off?" Tay asked. "Not conventionally," the Queen admitted. "The Shadow Collective uses technology we don't fully understand, but—" She looked at Hyun thoughtfully. "You've already proven that human thinking can solve problems our minds cannot. Perhaps that applies to military situations as well." Through the chaos of alarms and distant weapons fire, Hyun heard something that made his heart race. The distinctive sound of human engines, Earthships, pushing their technology to the limit to reach Valian space. "Commander," came a familiar voice over the communication system. "This is Admiral Park of the Earth Defense Fleet. We received your distress signal and came as fast as we could." "How many ships?" Hyun asked. "Everything we could spare. 12 vessels against—" "Well, we're still counting the enemy forces." Queen Nira smiled grimly. "It seems your species shares our willingness to fight impossible odds." "The question is," Hyun said, watching more explosions light up the space around them, "can we survive long enough to turn this alliance into reality?" The battle raged around the station for 3 hours. Earth ships, though outnumbered, fought with a desperate creativity that surprised everyone, including their enemies. Captain Sora's vessel, Busan, managed to disable 2 Shadow Collective ships by ramming them with cargo containers filled with mining explosives. Lieutenant Junho used his fighter's damaged engines as improvised weapons, turning his crippled ship into a guided missile, but it was clear they couldn't hold out much longer. "We've lost contact with 2 of our ships," Admiral Park reported grimly over the communication link. "The enemy has some kind of weapon that shuts down our systems completely." In the emergency command center deep within the station, Hyun watched the tactical displays with growing dread. Every time the humans adapted to one threat, the Shadow Collective revealed another weapon they'd never seen before. "They're testing us," Queen Nira said quietly, standing beside him. "This isn't really about stopping our alliance. They want to see what we're capable of when we work together." "Well, they're getting quite a show," Prince Jorik commented. Despite everything, he'd fought alongside them when the station was boarded, and his earlier hostility had transformed into grudging respect. "Your people fight like demons," he continued, watching as Earth Marines repelled another boarding attempt. "No strategy, no proper formation, just pure stubborn refusal to die." "That's humanity for you," Tay said with grim pride, nursing a wounded arm from the earlier fighting. Queen Nira suddenly grabbed Hyun's arm, her purple eyes wide with what looked like shock. "I need to speak with you privately now." They moved to a smaller chamber off the command center. The moment the door sealed, Queen Nira's composed royal demeanor cracked. "The visions are getting stronger," she said, her voice shaking. "Ever. Since the fighting started, I can see possibilities, futures that might happen." "What kind of visions?" Hyun asked, though part of him wasn't sure he wanted to know. "I see humanity spreading across the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as catalysts. Everywhere your people go, you change things. You make other species think differently, adapt, grow." Her eyes focused on something beyond the walls. "I see wars ending because humans find solutions no one else could imagine. I see scientific breakthroughs that reshape reality itself." She turned to face him directly. "But I also see darker paths, futures where humanity remains isolated, where your creativity turns destructive instead of constructive, where the galaxy stagnates because it never learned to think the way humans do, and you believe our alliance determines which future happens." "I know it does," she said with absolute certainty. "The moment you stepped into my throne room, the galaxy's fate began shifting. Every choice we make now echoes across centuries." The weight of her words hit him like a physical blow. "So this isn't really about whether we're compatible. It's about the future of civilized space." "It started as compatibility," Queen Nira admitted, "but it's become something much larger. If you accept my offer, if you become my partner and co-ruler, you won't just be helping our two species. You'll be steering the galaxy toward a future where differences are celebrated instead of feared." "And if I choose to return to Earth?" Her expression grew sad. "Then humanity remains on the outside. Your people will survive, probably even thrive, but the galaxy will miss its chance to become something greater." Through the walls, they could hear the sounds of continuing battle. Earth ships were still fighting, still refusing to give up, despite impossible odds. "There's something else," Queen Nira continued. "The role I'm offering isn't ceremonial. As co-ruler, you'd have real power, real responsibility. You'd be making decisions that affect billions of lives across dozens of worlds. I'm a military commander, not a politician." "You're a human," she corrected. "That's exactly what we need." The moment Hyun made his decision, everything changed. "I accept," he said simply, and Queen Nira's face lit up with a joy so pure it seemed to brighten the entire room. But first they had a battle to win. "Admiral Park," Hyun called over the communication system, "I need you to do something that's going to sound completely insane." "Commander, we're fighting invisible ships with weapons that shouldn't exist. Insane is our specialty right now. Stop fighting defensively. I want every human ship to do the most unpredictable thing they can think of. Don't try to win, try to confuse them." Within minutes, the space around the station transformed into chaos. Captain Sora began flying her ship in patterns that spelled out Korean curse words. Lieutenant Junho started broadcasting Earth music at maximum volume while flying upside down. The Incheon began dropping cargo containers filled with Earth food, creating a bizarre minefield of kimchi and instant noodles. The Shadow Collective ships, programmed for logical tactical responses, couldn't adapt to such randomness. Their formation broke apart as they tried to predict human behavior that had no pattern to predict. "It's working," Admiral Park reported with amazement. "They're retreating." But Queen Nira was already focused on something else. "The bonding ceremony must happen now. While the psychic energies are still chaotic, the visions show this is our only window. The ceremony took place in the station's crystal heart, a chamber Hyun hadn't seen before. The walls pulsed with living light, and the air itself seemed to hum with energy. Prince Jorik stood as witness, his earlier hostility completely replaced by solemn respect. "This has never been attempted before," Guide Kelleth warned nervously. "Cross-species bonding could have unpredictable effects." "Everything about humans is unpredictable," Queen Nera replied with a smile. "That's why this will work." The ceremony was both simple and profound. They stood facing each other in the center of the chamber, while Valian energy patterns swirled around them. Queen Nera placed her hands on either side of Hyun's face, her skin warm and surprisingly soft. "Are you ready?" she asked. "No," Hyun admitted, "but let's do it anyway." The moment their minds connected, Hyun felt like he was falling through stars. He could suddenly sense Queen Nera's thoughts, her emotions, her memories stretching back decades. But more than that, he could feel her love for her people, her hope for the future, and her absolute certainty that together they could build something amazing. In return, she experienced his human perspective, the chaos and creativity, the stubborn refusal to accept limitations, the deep caring hidden beneath Earth's military protocols. She felt his memories of home, his loyalty to his crew, and his growing understanding that some choices are bigger than any one person. The telepathic link stabilized with a flash of light that illuminated the entire chamber. When it faded, something fundamental had changed in both of them. "I can feel your thoughts," Hyun said wonderingly, "and I can see solutions I never imagined," Queen Nera replied, her purple eyes now flecked with gold. "The human perspective, it's like having access to an entirely new way of existing." News of the bonding spread across the galaxy within hours. The same civilizations that had tried to stop the alliance now sent diplomatic messages requesting meetings. They wanted to understand how two species could share thoughts while maintaining their individual identities. "Commander, Your Majesty," Admiral Park corrected himself over the communication link. "Earth Command is requesting immediate reports on what just happened." Hyun looked at Queen Nera, sharing a moment of perfect understanding through their new connection. "Tell them," he said, "that humanity just took its first step toward becoming a truly galactic species. The future stretched ahead of them, full of challenges and possibilities neither species could face alone. But together, with human creativity and Valian wisdom combined, they were ready for anything the universe might throw at them. The age of isolation was over. The age of cooperation had begun."